Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our first meeting for 2021. And we hope it isn't quite as disruptive as 2020. Council acknowledges and pays respects to the Tasmanian Aboriginal community as the traditional and original owners and continuing custodians of this land. All persons in attendance are advised that it's Council policy to record Council meetings in accordance with Council's digital recording policy. The digital recording of this meeting will be made available to the public on Council's website for a minimum period of 6 months. And also a reminder that, as has been our custom, this meeting is being live streamed. Item 1 is apologies. Councillor Milwan did make it, so glad you got back. But Councillor Laycock is an apology. Item 2 is declarations of interest in this meeting. Are there any declarations of interest in any item on this agenda, please? Councillor Ennis?
Yep, 5.4.
5.4. Yep, thank you. Any others? No? Moving on, item 3 is procedural matters. Item 3.1.1 is confirmation of the previous minutes of our agenda for the 21st of December. Do I have a mover of that recommendation, please?
So moved.
Councillor Hollister, seconder.
Second.
Councillor Murphy, thank you. Councillor Hollister.
Nothing further to add.
Councillor Murphy.
Nothing further.
Any comments, questions? Councillor Hollister to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Item 3.2 is public question time, and 3.2.1 is responses to questions raised at a prior meeting. Do I have a mover of that recommendation, please?
So moved.
Councillor Perry, thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Hollister, thank you. Councillor Perry.
Merely procedural, Mayor. Nothing to add.
Thank you. Councillor Hollister.
Nothing to add.
Any other comments, questions? Councillor Perry.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 3.2.2 is questions on notice from the public, and they are listed there with them on the attachments to the agenda. Is there a mover of that recommendation, please?
So moved.
Councillor Perry, thank you. Do you have a seconder?
Seconded.
Councillor Hollister, thank you. Councillor Perry.
Answered appropriately. Nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hollister.
I'm satisfied with the answer. Nothing further.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Perry to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 3.2.3 is questions without notice from the public gallery, and I will ask Mr. Janney, has he put his question in earlier in the day? If you would like to go first, please, Mr. Janney.
Thank you, Mayor. My name's Douglas Janney, 23 Watkinson Street, Devonport. Item 6.5. The graph on page 57 shows that 5 of the 6 circular graphs are greater than 15% off track. This would suggest that the council personnel are not working efficiently, or there are not enough people for the activities. Question 1, which is it?
Mr. Atkins, I'll ask you to respond.
Yeah, through you there. It's a good question, Mr. Janney. We certainly don't consider that it's a resourcing issue, but rather it's an outcome of how the report is calculated. The software assumes that projects will roll out in equal measure each month, whereas in reality, with the normal ebbs and flows of the project work, the timing is not consistent across the year. We would expect that the timing will align over the next 6 months, and that the vast majority of actions will be completed this financial year.
Thank you.
Question 2. Item 6.6.1, page 106. Capital expenditure graph for the first 6 months shows the actual expenditure is only 67.7% of the budget, cumulative. Why isn't the actual a much higher percentage?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. The actual capital expenditure was in line with forecast expenditure up until November 20. The divergence in the forecast from that point on is mostly due to amendments that were made to the capital program late last year, which saw an additional $1 million of unplanned funding from the federal government. The majority of this extra funding has been allocated to projects that will be delivered across the remainder of the 2021 year and into the first 6 months of the 21-22 year. The forecast will be reviewed as a result of that, and now that we're entering the second half of the financial year, and it will be updated in next month's report. It is worth noting that the graph reports actual expenditure, and it does not include commitments, project commitments, and as of the date of this report, the total commitments represented an additional $3.5 million in value.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins.
Just one other thing, I'd like to see that capital expenditure, those sheets are in the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings, and thank you for providing your questions earlier in the day. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Rodney Russell, 225 Steel Street, Devonport. As our council, what control do you have over the excessive use of the PA systems of some of our public schools and businesses? Some appear to be very loud. Externally of the building.
Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Yes, through you, Mayor, look, we don't really have any control over those activities, I guess, unless it's making a venue is creating excessive noise, and then it becomes a noise pollution issue which we can follow up.
So you require a complaint from me or the public?
Through you, Mayor, that's right. If there was a complaint for excessive noise, we would investigate the matter.
Date and time it happened.
Correct, all the more information the better.
Thank you. Motors car yard on Don Road are parking their cars for sale on the Bark landscaping fronting onto Don Road. Is this allowed as part of the planning scheme conditions?
Through you, Mayor, we'll take that on notice. I assume the garden may be part of their own land. We'll come back to Mr. Russell.
Thank you. On the Best Street side of the multi-storey car park, in the landscaping is a green installation power box, quite large, with the remnants of 2 planning notices on it. What is Council's policy on the removal of past planning notices?
Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Through you, Mayor, we'll follow that up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Mr. Morris.
Eric Morris, President of the Devonport Senior Citizens Club. Could the Mayor please advise what progress has been made in regards to a motion passed at the November AGM regarding free parking for ratepayers who have paid rates for over 50 years? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moggs. The last conversation I had with the General Manager was we have a range of parking issues, including that, to discuss at our next workshop, which is the 8th of February. Thank you. Mr. Mills.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Christopher Mills, 52 Harold Street. I'm here because I have evidence in my possession that this administration knowingly placed my home at risk of collapse in November 2019 Question 1. Council meeting 27th of July 2020. Is Mr. Atkins a qualified geotechnical engineer? Answer. No, I am not a geotechnical engineer. Council meeting 21st of December. Question. Is Mr. Atkins a qualified arborist? Answer. Just bear with me. The council has staff with the necessary qualifications and experience to undertake the work they have done on that piece of land next to Mr. Mill's property. Mr. Atkins, through you, Your Mayorship, Mr. Atkins, could you please be good enough to answer my question from the last meeting? And the question is, are you a qualified arborist or are you not? That is the question.
Mr Mills, that question's been asked and answered. You have the answer. You just read it to us. Did you have another question?
Question 2 then. Throughout 2020, 2 full-time employees in council speak, that is FTE, have staffed the customer service desk. I have found them to be most polite and helpful. The question is, how many times in 2020 did the Executive Manager, People and Finance personally supervise or assist these 2 FTE staff at their workstation to deal with customer inquiries, distribute letters and answer the phone, etc.? That is the question.
Through you, Mayor, I guess the public question time at council is to ask questions around council activities. My advice would be that that question is getting into personnel matters.
Thank you. Did you have another question, Mr Mills?
With considerable respect, Your Mayorship, is that a yes or a no?
The question wasn't a yes or no question, Mr Mills. Would you like to move on?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is Mr. Gary Corcoran, the Parks and Reserves Coordinator, currently employed in any capacity by Devonport Council?
Again, Mr Mills, that's a question around personnel, not around council activities. Thank you.
Could Your Mayorship suggest how I can seek other answers to these questions by another route?
I gather we have used other means before, Mr Mills.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
A right to information request would be your method of obtaining information that we might be able to supply you with, Mr Mills. Thank you.
Much obliged to you, Your Mayorship.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Bob Millicott, 11 Cocker Place, Devonport. Pardon me. Mayor and councillors, I refer to item 5.4 and 6.4 in the agenda for tonight, specifically about the awarding of a construction contract as well as the councillor's detailed expenditure for November and December.
Mr Bellicott,
I must say,
Mr Bellicott, could you just repeat the item numbers you mentioned, please?
5.4 and 6.4.
6.4 doesn't refer to attendance.
Well, one refers to the LGA conference,
okay.
and one's for the other.
Thank you.
If you'll just...
I apologise, Carol.
No, thank you. I must say, council is to be commended for such openness and transparency in regards to these, and I could give other examples about this. However, what a pity it is in regard to my simple question on notice for tonight, reference page 8,
item 3.2 and 2.2, legal costs, that the General Manager could not give a precise answer to it. I now ask, is it not an indictment of Council's expensive computer software that the General Manager could not easily and extensively slice and dice the required amount of ratepayers' funds that has been expended on legal fees pertaining specifically to Providore Place and from the fees pertaining specifically to Providore Place from the computer accounting system? And is it not imperative that this important information should be readily available for councillors when making decisions about Providore Place and should be included so ratepayers will know what the Living City project has really cost?
Mr. Bellicott, I'm going to take that as commentary. Thank you. Did you have a question?
All right, yes. Well, the part of the question. Would it not be unreasonable, Mayor, to ask, were you or any other councillor made aware of the amount by the General Manager when you were trying to sort out the ongoing problems at Providore Place? And I would have thought it would be part of your homework to find out on behalf of ratepayers just what, and to use one of Councillor Perry's words, a considerable amount of ratepayers' funds for this embarrassing affair has swallowed up and will continue to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Bellicott. Again, I'll take that as commentary.
My next question then, Mayor, I ask you, Mayor and Council, a simple question. Do any of you know or have any idea how much has been expended on legal advice to sort out the problems pertaining to the initial lease and other leases matters in regards to Southern Wild Distillery, which I note is listed sneakily as tenancy 5 in the closed session agenda for
very
tonight.
Careful, please.
And I wonder why that's all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bellicott. Again, I'm taking that as commentary, but the response is that yes, we have been kept up to date with costs right through the process.
Well, if you've been kept up to cost, surely the answer can be given.
Thank you, Mr. Bellicott.
It says there that it
Thank you,
wasn't.
Mr. Bellicott.
Thank you.
Mr. Bellicott. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Garden, I assume it's your turn.
Malcolm Garden, 4 Beaumont Drive, Mindale. The following questions, without notice, relate to item 6.4, elected members' expenses report on to 31st December 2020 on page 54 of the current agenda, and they're asked as separate questions requiring separate answers.
Excuse me, Mr. Garden, you will request them, you won't demand them. Thank you.
Requiring separate answers, I would much appreciate an answer, not a response. Thank you. Question 1. With reference to the several entries of $370 LGAT conference, will Council please advise as to precisely what deliverables this amount are provided for in relation to a one-day conference that equated to about 5.5 hours of actual meeting and conference time? In other words, just what does $370 a head get one at a one-day LGAT conference? So what do you get for the $370 per head to attend the LGAT conference?
The agenda for the conference is on the LGAT website. Mr. Garland, if you're interested. Thank you.
Yeah, I know it is.
Okay.
So what do you get for the money? You get your morning and afternoon teas, which are sponsored. You get your dinner, which I take it was sponsored. I'd just like to know what LGAT's charging us for at $370 a head. Is it venue hire? I mean, it must go towards something, or is it a way of funding LGAT?
Mr. Garland, you're really splitting hairs now. We have an allowance that we have in our budget every year for conferences and for professional development. Last year we used almost none so far of our professional development allowance as part of us in continuing to improve as councillors. And I'm take exception to your.
I'm not questioning it, Mayor. I've gone to enough national conferences, chaired them, sat in the chair and took the questions from the floor and beat them. I don't know what goes on. But honestly, I'm just asking you what you get for $370. So you're telling me it's CPD, continuous professional training for councillors. That's what you get out of it, is it?
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay. Honestly, will council please advise precisely what the amount of $502 travel and meal reimbursements against Councillor Lynn Laycock relates to? In other words, was it in relation to the LGAT one-day conference and include providing transport and payment of meals for other councillors? I wouldn't have thought it just been a one-off. There was only one in there for travel and meal allowances. So was it a consolidated reimbursement for other councillors to get them down there, car sharing, etc., and meals?
You ready for your response, Mr. Gallagher?
Yeah, but
It was a mileage claim for Ms. Laycock.
Miss Laycock. Well, I've asked.
And you've got an answer. Did you have another question?
It was her travelling expenses
Yes, sir.
and her meal allowance.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
As per our policy.
Oh, so I guess
As per our policy.
I'll have to ask you one day why the other councillors didn't claim the same then if it's not a reimbursement for a group. But
Well, for a start, I have a vehicle that's provided already by council. Why would I claim anything?
yeah, you've got a vehicle. Yeah.
Did you have another question?
Yes, I do, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. Did any council staff also attend the LGAT conference referred to on page 54 of the current agenda? And if so, who were they?
General manager attended? I think just the general manager.
Just the general manager.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Were there any other questions? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on to the business of the night. Item 3.4 is 3.3 is questions on notice from councillors, and we don't have any. And item 3.4 are notices of motion, and again, they are not listed. Item 4 is planning authority matters, and I now announce that council intends to act as a planning authority under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act of 1993 for the consideration of agenda items 4.1 and 4.2. Council is required by Regulation 8.3 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2015 to deal with items as a planning authority under the law of 1993 in a sequential manner. Following items are to be dealt with at this meeting in Council's capacity as a planning authority. Item 4.1 is PA 2020.0212, 64 Fleetwood Drive, Sprayton, and a residential park building. There is a recommendation for us there on page 15. Do I have a move, please?
So moved.
Councillor Norton,
Second.
Councillor thank you. Councillor Norton.
I can see that the relevant application has been assessed, against the relevant plan code, and unfortunately we do need to go with the recommendation not to cooperate.
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I have a question, if I may, through you, to Mr. Malley. I'm assuming, hello, happy new year. So I'm just assuming from this, if we're rejecting this plan, this person could go back and redraw and come up with a building that falls under all the requirements and have a go at doing that again. Yes, simple as that. Yeah, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Councillor Norton to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Item 4.2 is PA 2020.0220, 16 Beach Rock View, East Devonport. Do I have a move of the recommendation, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Norton. Do I have a second?
Go ahead, second it.
Mr. Alexia, thank you. Councillor Norton.
Thank you. I do have a question. So it's to be approved with the discretionary elements of the application as reported. for conditional approval. Now, are those conditions are what outlined in the introduction? So there was 4 conditions outlined in the introduction.
Mr. Mountain, clarify, please. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, certainly that's correct, Councillor Milburn. So conditions in accordance with what's been submitted, and there's some conditions about the structural integrity of the wall and doing some further work on that.
Thank you very much. And one more question, if I may. The wall is 2.5 metres high on the downside. Does that require some kind of balustrading or something to stop people from falling off the end?
Thank you. Mr. Mountain.
Through you, Madam Mayor, certainly good question, Councillor Milburn. I guess the next stage for the developer, if they go ahead with the works, is to apply for a building permit, and under the National Construction Code, that certainly looks at those type of issues. So the building surveyor will need to assess that as the next stage in the process.
Wonderful, thank you. No more questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Alexander.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I had similar questions here for Alex. I think it's very nice, Alex. I was contacted by Rodney and Diane Smith over the weekend and was able to visit the property and have a look at that site. And just noticed they had some concerns regarding what was happening in the JC block, but under the recommendations there, we'll go towards that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Floyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I too have had contact with the representation against the application, and I guess their primary concern was the quality of the construction of the wall, but I think that's been covered quite adequately in the second paragraph on page 37. I won't read it all out, but essentially says that the wall will require certification from a qualified engineer regarding the design and construction materials of any retaining wall structure greater than 1 metre in height. So I think there's comfort there, and I guess there's now an awareness that wall does have to meet certain standards, and I think that's probably a good thing going forward for the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor General.
Thank you. Yes, through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Mountain again. So when it comes to the Rabbit Proof Fence Act, lot for lot is allowed, or if you upgrade the fence, if you're replacing a fence, usually the neighbour would want to upgrade the fence, the other neighbour doesn't want to, they want to go with the same type of fence. This fence didn't exist, correct? At the moment, there's nothing old that's been taken down. So if a neighbour wanted to do a collarbone fence, and you're saying in your report there, I noted that it's up to the 2 neighbours to have a discussion and decide on how this all works. Do the neighbours have to then therefore put some allocation towards this fence, but only to a collarbone price? Getting technical?
Yeah.
It's not the boundary. No.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for your question, Councillor Jarman. Certainly between neighbours to come up with that agreement. It's one that council don't get involved in that process.
So it's the different fence. It's not to this where this fence is.
But yeah, at the moment there's no fence proposed between the properties, so it'll be between the neighbours to come up with what they agree on.
Lovely. Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you.
And I'll guess further to that, if that boundary fence to Alex is entirely on one of the properties, then it's entirely the responsibility of that particular property owner to fund that. It's not splitting the boundary or halfway across each boundary. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Moore wants to close.
Thank you, councillors, for those questions. Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mountain. Item 5 is reports. Item 5.1 is the public lighting strategy 2021 to 2026. There's a recommendation made for us on page 38. Yes, so Councillor Jarman, thank you. Councillor Perry. Councillor Jarman.
Yes. I'll try that again. Sorry. Yes, but certainly this strategy takes us from 21 through to 2026. These are the strategies that we do so well at council. I had a good read of this report. Obviously, I'm always in favour of anything that's environmentally sustainable. And I know we're working on that. Doing the LED lighting is certainly showing good cause that we are on the right track. Can't wait to see that we work on that even further. And also just to mention about when there is a community support for something, I like to point out how well council did listen, especially about Victoria Parade. Yes, it's been done in sections, that only makes sense with the budget, and is very favourable, and everybody loves using that area, and now with the lighting it just makes it accessible all year round. So we certainly do look after the community when it comes to this type of strategy, and we certainly are listening to the people out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jarman. Councillor Perry.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'll support Councillor Jarman's comments. Jesse stole your thunder on a couple of them.
Sorry.
But no, it's fine. Our lighting strategy is really delivering some good outcomes for the community. And Councillor Jarman mentioned Victoria Parade. I think it's a great example. I guess over 3 different batches of new lighting that's lit now from the elevator right round to the bluff. And that's producing some really good outcomes. And during COVID last year, there were people out late at night because they could go and do it now. So I think that's a good example of how well we are, how well our lighting strategy is serving the city, and I look forward to continuing. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. I too will support the comments made by the previous 2 speakers. I suppose for me, having read the report, one of the things I'd like to know is if there's still any money left in the budget from the boat ramp redevelopment to actually erect some lighting at the end of the pontoon or in that car parking space, because it still is an area of need, and taking into consideration that we are looking at the solar technology and moving forward. I think potentially it may have just been missed in that particular area. And
Thank you. We've got a comment.
Through the Mayor, just to say that the boat ramp budget was in the previous year, and that money's now gone, but certainly we'll take it on notice and add it to the future program.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Jarman to close. Consider it closed. Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 5.2 is a report on the proposal to rename part of David Street at East Devonport. The recommendation is there for us. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Jarman, thank you. A seconder.
Very second.
Councillor Alexander, thank you. Councillor Jarman.
In relation to this, and I understand why we're not proceeding, and it's a shame because it kind of made sense when we workshopped this. So I have a question through you to Mr. Skirving. Hope to see who raises their eyebrow. Thank you. My question is, could we not just change it to the North David section, into North David Street, but not change the numbers of the houses? So my thoughts would be, especially for one of the ladies that did respond, it is a nightmare to change your address. It's not easy. You've got to think of all the different things, of all the address changes you've got to do, and I'm sorry, I've moved 21 times and I know how hard it is. And it's a nightmare, especially if you haven't done it for a long time. So just my thought would be, you could then do it over a longer period of time if you're not changing your actual number of your street that you live. It's just that each time it comes up, you then say that this is now North David. But changing your number, you'd have to go about getting everything done in bulk all at once. And I therefore understand the time it would take and the stress that it would involve. So that would be, did we consider that, I suppose is the question.
Thank you. Mr. Skirving.
Through you, Mayor. So our understanding is that the change in name or the numbering would require an addressing change regardless. So it could be either or, but any change would require an addressing change. So if the street numbers stayed the same, but North David Street was implemented, that would still represent an addressing change. I guess the consideration from the community feedback was that there wasn't a strong signal from the community at this point in time to change the name. So on that basis, the recommendation was put forward was to not progress any name change or numbering change at this point in time, potentially look at other signage within the local area that may assist wayfinding in terms of no-through road signage. The other point to note is that feedback from the nomenclature board is that cardinal point naming, so north, south, east, west, is not recommended as part of street naming protocols. Now, we do already have some street names that follow that protocol at the moment. That would be something that if there was a desire from the community to revisit these naming conventions in the future, that would have to take that consideration on board as well.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you. Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr Skirving, for that response there. You've answered all the questions there. I do note there was a story in today's paper regarding the panel change, but I'll go to that. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And I guess the main point of all of that was that none of the emergency services felt that they needed that change to make their responses better. Mr Skirving, that's correct?
We did receive a response from Tas Police.
That they weren't.
They provided a support for a potential name change, but didn't provide any, I think it was an acknowledgement of council's right to make the decision, there wasn't any evidence provided that would assist their operations in any way, but we didn't receive any responses from other emergency services.
Thank you. Any other comments? Oh, sorry, Councillor Perry.
So I'm in a bad spot, aren't I? I can see that. In addition to previous comments, and particularly comments from Mr Skirving, the 32 letters sent out to affected stakeholders. We've got 3 responses and 2 are against. So that would indicate there's clearly no appetite for change at this minute. And I think the decision's the right one on that basis. So yeah, let's see what happens in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Ennis, are you? Councillor Hoskin, is it yes or no?
I think this is probably a bit of an example to show that sometimes council needs to act in the interest of the community. I think the survey of 3 is
Every time.
right. I think the survey reply of 3 is really not doing much, shows that people are probably not interested at all. It's a bit like changing Devonport show holiday. I think for the benefit of the retail community, we should have shifted it. So sometimes I think councils have to act in the best interest of the community.
Thank you, Councillor Hoskin. Slightly off topic there, but that's fine. Councillor Ennis, did you?
Yeah, it made sense to change it to me, but it doesn't necessarily affect me. So what the community wants is we will stick with it at the moment.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Dillon, please. Councillor closed. Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 5.3 is the touchbook for the sponsorship proposal. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Seconded. Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Perry.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'm going to support this. We had a contingent from representing the Cold Climate Classic touch football tournament in October, just before Christmas, and they put up a very professional presentation. And there's a spot on the touch football calendar for 500 participants, and it doesn't include their families and other members that come with them, to come to Devonport for a week in October every year. I think that's a fantastic opportunity and a really good time of the year to come to Devonport, because we're just climbing out of winter. Some might recall the Australian Masters Games 3 years ago when we had them in October. We were blessed with outstanding weather, and we can't guarantee that every October for sure. But I think to get that many people into our city and that many bed nights has an immediate impact on our local economy. And it also shows those people, as our city gets better and better, shows those people what a good spot Devonport is, and they'll go back. And before you know it, there's lots of other people wanting to come to Devonport for different reasons. So I totally support this. I think the investment amount for the benefit is very, very reasonable, and I hope that everyone else supports it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Murphy.
Yes, I fully support Councillor Perry's comments. This is a significant opportunity. The presentation that was provided by Touch Football Australia wasn't one that really did highlight the financial benefit, not just to Devonport, but also to our region, and it puts us in a position where we then become the leader within the region of showcasing such a wonderful part of the state.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Ennis.
Yes, hopefully it is a bit cold because it has named the Cold Climate Classic, and if it's real hot, Leon, I think they'll go away disappointed. So hopefully the people will come and enjoy the change that Devonport can provide.
Thank you, Councillor Ennis. Councillor Brown.
No, October's going to be fantastic because my son's getting married in October. Thank you very much. So it's going to be so hot, it'll be ridiculous. No, this will be great. I love the fact that we are seeing more and more where we are getting acknowledged that we are an area that people can come and enjoy and show off their different sporting achievements and abilities. And we are welcoming them with open arms and saying we're ready and open for business. And that's exciting for Devonport and for the region. And I can't wait to see what else comes forward to us in the near future, because it's just getting to the point where we realise that we are ready to have a lot more people coming into the area, especially with the hotel being built. We're certainly going to have a lot more accommodation. It's going to work for us and the region, so it's great. Cheers.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yes, I fully support this and support our previous speakers. It's definitely one area that we can entice people to come and visit Devonport and stay and make our city even bigger and stronger. And I think for the outlay that we're going to outlay for this is really beneficial for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Perry to close.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thank you everyone for your comments. Yeah, I'll just reiterate that Masters Games, that the people that attend Masters Games generally go with plenty of money in their pocket and with not too much high expectation on their actual sporting ability, but their ability to socialise at a high level for that week period. So, and there's great leverage from Masters Games. As I mentioned, people go back and tell everyone what a great place Devonport is and on it goes. So thank you everyone, and let's move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Item 5.4. Councillor Ennis, you've cleared an interest in this item on the agenda. Thank you. Item 5.4 is the tender report for contract CV0098, the Devonport Football Club change rooms redevelopment. There is a recommendation there first on page 46. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Holster, Councillor John. Councillor Holster.
Yes, I think the facilities of the Devonport Football Club are way overdue for an upgrade, and this is an opportunity we shouldn't miss. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor John.
This levelling the playing field allocation of funds throughout has just been a wonderful thing. And to see that we're now getting this done at the Devonport Football Club, let alone all the other clubs that is taking advantage of this wonderful grant, is just proving to us that we're non-gender specific anymore. It's wonderful to see that we are definitely levelling the playing field the way we're going, and it's working really well for all these clubs. So good to see another one happening. Cheers.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yes, you do, Mayor. There's just a couple of things. I don't know whether the gentleman will be able to clarify or not. There is some risk elements associated with this in relation to, obviously, the shortfall in the budget versus what it's going to cost. The exposure to council, how much of it will council be exposed in relation to picking up the difference, I suppose, in that, and if we're able to do that. It says here in the report that there is some conversations going on with the preferred tender at this point in time, but in the current environment with access to builders, etc., etc., etc. It is probably difficult to get a firm commitment, and will they be able to meet those timeframes for the grant funding?
Thank you. Mr. Skirvin.
Through you, Mayor. So in terms of council's liability for cost overruns for grant-funded projects, including projects where sporting clubs have sought funding initially and then council steps in to administer those funds, part of that role we do take on liability for cost overruns on projects. So the funding commitment is typically fixed, and council does take on that liability even in cases where we haven't been the original instigator of the project. So fulfilling that role is generally an obligation of the funding agreement that council enters into. In terms of the funding allocations, typically in accordance with our code of tendering, we would usually resolve these outstanding cost-saving discussions that we're having prior to coming back to council. One of the reasons we've brought this project to council for consideration at this point in time is timely related in terms of the contractor's capacity to meet the funding commitment timelines, but also wanting to get the project underway to minimise the amount of time that the users of the facility have to come up with alternative arrangements. So typically we would have finalised these negotiations prior to presenting a report to council. There are and have been some identified potential cost savings of around 5% of the contract value with the contractor during the Christmas period, which we haven't finalised yet, but we want to secure that. So that represents around $40,000. We haven't got to the point of agreeing on those yet, as I said, but we want to pursue those options further. There are other funding opportunities in the capital program. There's 25,000 remaining from the levelling the playing field funding allocations, which could be attributed to this project. We've also got the balance of funding available from the local roads and community infrastructure program. So we're proposing to fund the public toilet component wholly from those grant funds that are currently unallocated. And the balance of the funding is available from other cost savings across the capital program. So the contractor is committed to a proposed completion date, and that fits within the grant funding timelines. We do have flexibility around two of the funding opportunities, so even if we have to prioritise completion of some of the work and have that signed off, we're confident we'll meet the requirements of the grant funding program.
Thank you, Mr. Skirvin.
So if I may then, Mayor, ballpark, what would the potential dollar value be in relation to if we do have to pick that up? Is it somewhere in the vicinity of the $124,000 that's currently there as the shortfall, or is it going to be if we don't meet? So the federal government scheme, that one we've got flexibility around.
No. So the federal scheme is
420,000
is the firmer completion timeline.
Yep.
The state government have already provided indication to support a delayed completion date if required, and similar to the AFL TAS.
Yep.
In terms of shortfall around current budget provision, it's as reported in the report at the moment.
Yep.
And also, as noted, we're confident we've got funding within the capital program to cover those additional costs, but that needs to be a decision of council to take on the project on that basis.
Right, thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Mrs. Collins.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Just want to check if you had anything else. Councillor Perry.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I understand Councillor Murphy's line of questioning, and that's fair enough, and everyone else's comments as well. I guess looking at it holistically, we've an opportunity to spend, or council's initial contribution, $50,000 on a $942,000, however you want to frame it, on a $942,000 project is a good get for council to improve the facilities at the Devonport Oval, and there will be the potential for other user groups to use the improved facilities as well. Just on the federal grant, the federal value grant of 420, yeah, there must be some timelines on that because that was actually a 2019 federal election commitment. So we're nearly leading up to 2 years past that election. So there's no doubt there's some pressure coming to bear there, but holistically, I think it's a good project. As I said, council's initial commitment of $50,000, and we hope it remains at that of a $900,000 project is good value for money, and we won't get opportunities like that too much in the short-term future, I wouldn't have thought, so I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jarman?
Just a question for you to Mr. Skirting. Well, seeing that the toilets are part of this plan, not just the change rooms for the football club itself, is there any reason why the other clubs aren't involved in allocating funds or help with contingency or?
Through you, Mayor, I guess in the funding mix they weren't part of the original submissions that were made to state and federal government, so we haven't pursued that. We do have an allocation available in the local roads and community infrastructure program to go towards that, given it will be a public use facility for the venue. We thought that was a good allocation of those funds, but as the principal proponent behind the applications, the Devonport Football Club, I'm not aware that they approached other venue users to assist with funding the project.
Thank you.
Thank you. And their financial contribution is quite small.
Yeah. But
so, any other comments, questions?
I just make a comment, I see it more as a Devonport Oval project rather than Devonport Football Club project.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hollister to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Davis. Thanks, Maris. Item 6.1 is workshops and briefing sessions held since the last council meeting. We didn't have any. We actually had Christmas off. Item 6.2 is the Mayor's monthly report. Do I have a recommendation, please?
So,
Councillor Jarman.
Second.
Councillor Murphy, thank you. Councillor Jarman.
just in relation to your two meetings with Senator Colbeck and Senator Lambie about the Sound and Light show, how did the Light and Sound show, sorry, saying it wrongly, how was that received by both?
Well, I say they both were quite enthusiastic about it and have offered letters of support and so on. So we just felt it was important that our local representatives had an update and we're aware of the project, given that we're hoping to sourcing funding from somewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. It's been a very busy month, as per normal. Just a quick question in relation to the meeting with Bernard Dwyer, CEO of TT Line.
Again, it was an opportunity to catch up with him, given that his travel has been very restricted over previous months. He was going to just to touch base with him, and I think we're looking to invite him. Yeah, we're talking about the connection with Geelong, with the Spirits, and that's currently progressing. None of all else is happening.
Very good.
Thank you. Councillor Perry?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor John to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.3 is the General Manager's report for this month, but do I have a move, please?
So moved.
Councillor Perry, Councillor Murphy, thank you. Councillor Perry.
Would that be a mix and match for the General Manager and the Acting General Manager, maybe for the month? Well done, keep up the good work, thank you.
Councillor Murphy.
Yes, no, been very busy.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Councillor Perry to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Carried unanimously. Item 6.4 is elected members' expense report for 2 December 2020. Do I have a mover of that recommendation, please?
So moved.
Councillor Perry, thank you.
Second.
Councillor Murphy, thank you. Councillor Perry.
Nothing to add.
Councillor Murphy,
Merely to second.
thank you. Any comments, questions? Councillor Perry to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.5 is the annual plan progress report to 31 December 2020. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Milborn, thank you. Seconder,
Second.
Councillor Alexia, thank you. Councillor Milborn.
I think we're progressing well on all the outcomes there, so well done.
Thank you. Councillor Alexia.
No, all good there, thanks, Madam Mayor.
Are there any comments, questions? Councillor Jarman.
Just a quick one, well done on the Santa tour. The staff did a really good job at getting that happening with the wonderful Rotary clubs, and I just think it was just lovely to see all the responses on Facebook, let alone people just talking the street about it, because it had a nice feel about it. Yes, we couldn't do the events we normally could, but what a nice way to find a different way to let the kids enjoy Christmas. I just make note, a neighbour of mine said, oh, I can't be bothered putting the Christmas lights up. It just doesn't seem the same. And the kids next door commented and said, oh, I'm really sad you're not doing it. So she did. So it's nice to see people realise just because we've had an awful year doesn't mean we let the kids down. And the Santa tours were just phenomenal, the way they were received. So well done to everybody involved.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Milborn to close.
I think Councillor Jarman is referring to something further on the agenda. However, noted. Thank you. Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.6 is General Management, People and Finance and Corporate Services Report for November, December. Do I have a mover of that recommendation, please?
So moved.
Councillor Hollister, thank you. Seconded. Councillor Milborn, thank you. Councillor Hollister.
It's quite a detailed report, plenty of information in there for everybody to read. Nothing further to add.
Thank you. Councillor Milborn.
Nothing further.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
Yes,
Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just in relation to the report, interesting the amount of views we had from the AGM on YouTube.
Yes. Councillor Alexia.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, look, this year was a totally different year with COVID getting us 2020, and obviously we had to make changes and plans a little bit differently than what we normally do every year. Yeah, I sort of definitely missed a lot of the events, especially New Year's and Christmas events that we normally would run. Happy to move forward on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Hollister to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.7. Community Services Report for November, December.
So moved.
Councillor Hollister, Councillor Milborn. Do I have a seconder, please?
Second.
Councillor Perry, thank you. Councillor Milborn.
Sorry, Councillor Jarman, I thought this would get your comment with that. Thank you very much. I was at the Inclusive Playground official opening and been there a few times and seen it being used by kids of all abilities. So I think that is amazing. It's good to see that we are doing some great things in these unfortunate times. We've pivoted and created some wonderful events that have brought the community together. So well done to everyone who comes with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I concur with Councillor Milborn. We are doing some really good things in difficult circumstances still with the restrictions on numbers. So keep up good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jarman.
Just noting about the Governor-General's visit, what an amazing opportunity a lot of the community had to meet up with the Governor-General and his wife, Mrs. Helen. And I'm sure everybody now knows the words, "To you are my sunshine." And I think, again, see, everyone smiles, so that was the whole point of it. So I think that's great, and maybe we should do that more often. Thank you.
Thank you. It certainly was a privilege to show off my city and our great people that we have across the city in a whole range of areas. It was a privilege. Are there any other comments? Councillor, move on to close. Councillor, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Are there any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.8 is the Convention and Arts Centre report for November and December 2020. Do I have a mover of the report, please?
So moved.
Councillor
Second.
Alexia, Councillor John.
Look, just a congratulations to Mr. Dobson on title, let alone everything else that you do and your staff are wonderful. Title was brilliant this year. Some of the entries were just amazing, and I love to see that such a diverse range of items were up for the award, and for jewellery to actually win was unheard of and quite novel, and I hope everyone got to see it, and if they didn't, they should. And I think just I'd love to encourage more people to go down and have a look at our gallery when we have exhibits on there. It's a wonderful space. And there's always a diverse range of things to go and see and talk to the staff about and learn a little bit more about what we bring into the town, let alone what the locals show as well. And I just want to say congratulations. I'm very proud of Tidal. It's grown so much. It's now internationally renowned. And regardless of COVID and the fact that we had to have only Tasmanian entrance this time, is that correct? It wasn't national, was it? It was just Tasmanian entrance. That was, again, a great thing to do for once. So maybe we could do that every second or third time. And so it was wonderful for the artists to be part of it. And it was just a really great, nice feel and atmosphere. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alexia.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Congratulations to Mr. Dobson on all the work that he's been doing. And I know time for myself was really rewarding to go and visit and meet some of the local artists down there. I had another winner picked for the winner, but congratulations to the winner. I do notice in the report that Mr. Dobson, you participated in an online meeting regarding past perfect migration for facilitate Kate Ernest in the USA. Just wanted to ask how that went, the online meeting.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, Councillor Alexia, the Past Perfect software is our current collection database software, which is reaching its end of life at the moment, and we're looking to transition to the most recent version. And we had a meeting early in the morning for us, late in the evening for the US, in regards to the transition to a new cloud-based system, which will allow online viewing and some other benefits that our current system doesn't provide for.
Thank you, Mr. Dobson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Dobson. You can see that we're moving quite forward with technology, the way things are moving and going along. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions? Councillor Ennis.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a visitor to the city with me the other week and given them a bit of a look around the place, and the Devonport Regional Gallery received high praise, and it's always a great spot to visit. I know I regularly go down and have a look at the art work and so forth, but fantastic, and goes away, these people go away and say what a fantastic job we're doing, and it's great for us. So well done, Jeff, and the team. It's good.
Thank you, Councillor Ennis. Are there any other comments, questions? Councillor Jarman to close.
I think it should be closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.9 are minutes of council's special interest groups and advisory boards. Have a move with recommendation, please.
So moved.
Councillor Wilborn, thank you.
I'll second.
Councillor Perry, thank you. Councillor Wilborn.
I have no questions. It seems like everyone's working really hard to keep those entities alive and happening. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry.
It's all in the report, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Councillor Wilborn to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 7, there were no Section 23 committee meetings held since the last meeting, and that brings to a close the public part of the meeting. Can I have a mover to move into closed session, please?
So moved.
Councillor Wilborn, seconder, please.
Second.
Councillor Alexia, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That brings the public part of our meeting to a close.